Hi, Stephanie. How are you?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for joining us on our webinar to chat about our development process on the new prenatal. It was great to work together with you on it.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Thanks. And for background for everyone joining us, Stephanie, this is Dr. Stephanie Nichols. She joined us on our whole journey to develop our new advanced prenatal and was a key part of our team that put together the final finished product along with Rebecca Fett and our pharmacist and our epigenetic experts and a number of other people who were on our team to help us bring you the best product possible. So we've had a number of questions since the product has launched, and we wanted to get through a couple of those with you today, just to help you understand what to look for in a prenatal and how to dig into, is this the best prenatal vitamin for you? So Stephanie, should we jump right in?
Yeah, let's do it.
Perfect. So maybe let's just talk about your own experience in your practice, and getting started with looking at what are key prenatal nutrients that you see women low in when they come into your office and they're looking to conceive, or they have just found out that they're pregnant.
Yeah. Vitamin D is one that is chronically low in pretty much all Americans, and the same is true for people or women who are trying to get pregnant. So vitamin D deficiency is super important to test for and to supplement because it's called vitamin D, but it actually functions more like a hormone. So it helps with activation of all of our sex hormones and ovulation, which is of course needed to conceive, as well as our immune system and our brain health and so many other systems in the body. So vitamin D is a big one. Essential fatty acids are also a really common deficiency, and a lot of that is due to our diet. Because as Americans, we tend to eat more animal products, things like eggs and animal proteins, that tends to offset our omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. So that can lead to some deficiency there. And omega-3s, especially DHA, is so important for baby's brain development. So that's especially one to keep an eye on. And then some of our water soluble vitamins like vitamin C and folate, which are very important for the conception period. Those tend to be deficient often because of our diet. Again, we eat a lot of processed foods or cooked foods, and both of those vitamins degrade with heat. So those are one of the top ones that I see in my practice in women who are trying to conceive.
Got it. So those are all ones that we need to make sure when we're looking at the supplement facts panel on the side of a prenatal that we're seeing not only that they're included, but also at higher values.
Yes, absolutely.
Great. And let's talk about those values a bit, because I think when I first got into this industry, it was very interesting to dig into where these values came from, and how they were set. And I think a lot of women don't necessarily understand. They think the daily value is the value that they should have. So tell us a little bit about the history of these daily values and where they come from and what they mean.
Right. That's such an important one because RDA, most of us would think, hey, that's the perfect amount that my body needs to be healthy. But in truth, those values were derived from how much of this vitamin or mineral does a person need to not show signs of deficiency. And so by the time somebody is showing signs of a vitamin or mineral deficiency, we've gone way past the point where they actually need to be. And especially when it comes to fertility and conception and being pregnant, we don't need just not deficient values. We need enough to support the mother's body and everything that she's going through, as well as the baby's body and the growth and development that the baby needs. So RDA, across the board is definitely not the optimal amount of a vitamin or mineral we need.
So if we see, say, on a supplement facts panel where, some RDAs kind of 2000%, 500%, 300%, well higher than the 100%, it sounds like that's not something we should be worried about.
For most of the time, no, especially with water soluble vitamins. So we see that a lot with vitamin C and B vitamins, the hundreds or 1000%. And a lot of that is because we can excrete those vitamins on a daily basis. Where we do want to just be a little bit more cautious are things like the fat soluble vitamins. So vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin K, because those do collect in the body. So no, RDA isn't the exact value we want for those vitamins, but we definitely don't want to go really well above those values in a lot of cases, just because of the risk of toxicity.
Gotcha. Let's actually dive into that vitamin A question a little bit more, because I think it's something that we have heard from a number of our customers who we're helping along their journey. Our prenatal vitamin includes vitamin A at 1,300 micrograms, and I think that talk to us a little bit about what that means, and is that something that is high? Is it too high? Is it going to drive toxicity? Tell us a little bit about that.
Right. And so vitamin A is an important one because we'll sometimes see beta carotene in replacement of vitamin A, and sometimes people think that's interchangeable. But what has to happen in the gut is beta carotene has to be activated to become vitamin A. And a lot of people don't have the best gut health or the best microbiome just due to medications, preservatives in food. So that's something to consider. With vitamin A, we do see the risk of toxicity, and we do see the risk of birth defects with high doses of vitamin A, but we're talking over 25,000 international units a day. So the conversion, you guys have 1,300 micrograms, that works out to just over 4,000 IUs of vitamin A. And the optimal dose for vitamin A in a prenatal is somewhere between 3,000 and 5,000 IUs, so right in the center there. And they've actually increased the max dose of vitamin A that's appropriate for prenatal from 5,000 IUs to 10,000 IUs. So there's no risk of birth defects or toxicity at that level.
Okay, thanks for helping us clarify that with a couple of our customers. I want to go back to a couple of things you see sometimes in marketing materials. Brands talk about something being bioavailable or active. And we talked a lot about this when we put together our prenatal, and that we wanted to use the highest quality ingredients in the most bioavailable forms, so that those easiest for your body to use those. Can you just walk us through a little bit, what does bioavailable, what does active mean, and why is it so important?
Yeah, so bioavailable means that how available is it to the body to digest, absorb, use, function with. And so there's so many chemical processes that go on from the time that you take a vitamin to the point where those vitamins can act as cofactors in the body. Because that's really what vitamins and minerals are. They help processes happen in the body. And so the active form of vitamins means that vitamin is in the exact chemical makeup form that the body is able to use right away. And so the more work we can take from the body of having to activate and, to do different processes, the more that we can eliminate that and just give it in the form the body can use right away, the more effective it's going to be and the more bioavailable it's going to be for the person's body.
Completely makes sense. And I think that's why I know we talked a lot about what form to use, and we had a lot of debates when we were in our product development meetings looking at, what do we use, mixes of certain forms of vitamins? Do we use, how do we get the most active form of every vitamin? So I think that's important to look for. And how would someone know what form a vitamin is in if they're looking at, say, a supplement fact panel?
So typically it'll say, for example, folate. And in brackets, it'll typically say the form of folate it is. So we might see folic acid. We might see methylfolate. We might see some other forms. So that's going to tell you the form that it's in. So it's often in the parentheses at the side of the vitamin. And if you're looking at a prenatal that doesn't specify the form, that's a little bit of a red flag, because you don't really know what form it is. And usually it's going to be the cheapest, most non-bioavailable form.
Yeah, and I as the CEO who put together all of the business side of building our prenatal, I can say that it is certainly more expensive to use the bioavailable, the most active forms of all the vitamins. But that was important to us in how we put this product together. So let's talk a little bit about how do you know if you're getting enough in a prenatal in terms of capsules, a number of capsules. We can go to CVS or our local drugstore and get a prenatal, and the dose might say that it's 1 capsule per day, or even 2 capsules per day. And if you look at other prenatals that are on the market, ours included, we are 6 capsules a day. There's some that are 8 capsules a day. Tell us a little bit about what the number of capsules kind of signifies to you, and how we should be thinking about that.
Yeah, I mean, from a manufacturing standpoint, a capsule can only fit so many milligrams. And when we're talking about vitamins, we need a certain amount of milligrams or micrograms to be at that optimal dose. So, just from a size perspective, if it's only 1 capsule, that right away is going to tell you that they've really scaled back or cut out the optimal dose of some vitamins and minerals, or have not included some vitamins or minerals at all. So right away, if you see something that's 1 a day, that's just physically not possible to have everything that a woman would need for fertility, preconception, prenatal.
And how about someone, how often are Americans, especially American women, with our diet these days, are most people making up for what they're not getting in their prenatal in their diet? Or is that where we run into trouble sometimes, where someone's taking a 1 a day prenatal, but they're still not able to make it up through their diet? How often is it, how possible is that to happen?
I think very possible, if not always the case, especially in our society today and our food source. We know that our soil has become so mineral deficient that a lot of the minerals that we expect to be in certain foods are so low, just because the soil has been stripped of all of that. So even for people who are really cognizant of their diet and eating lots of leafy greens and nuts and legumes and doing their best, they're still kind of at the mercy of what kind of soil was this grown in. And then that's kind of a small percent of the population, because most of us here, tend to eat a lot more processed foods, a lot more foods with preservatives and that are nutrient devoid, like bleached flour. So it is going to be commonplace just to be eating a diet that's really low in nutrient status.
And anyway, well, I think based on the last 2 questions, you talked about capsules and how you can only fit so many ingredients in it. One of those ingredients, which I know we went back and forth a lot on, was choline, because choline is actually one of the biggest ingredients from a manufacturing standpoint. If you think about kind of fitting everything into capsules, choline takes up calcium takes up a lot of space.
Yes.
And then, so thinking about how important is choline? Why is it important in preconception? And then thinking a little bit more about how can we get it, do we need to supplement it? Are we getting everything we need from our diet, or do we need to add a little bit more?
Yeah, choline, takes up a lot of space in a prenatal, but it's very important. And so it's kind of deserving of that space. I think it's earned its spot in the capsule, because it's so important for the baby's brain development and cognitive function, and as well as the spinal cord development. So, usually we think of folate and neural tube defects, which is definitely true, but choline is an essential vitamin to prevent neural tube defects. And a deficiency in choline actually puts the baby at 4 times of a risk of a neural tube defect. So from cognitive function, a memory function, and a spinal cord development function, choline is essential. Now, it's going to be especially important to have sufficient amount in a prenatal for women who are a vegetarian or vegan, because the majority of or if not all the choline sources are going to be from foods like eggs, turkey, chicken, sardines. There's a little bit of in broccoli too, but deficiency in that population is going to be very common.
So how much should we be looking for? Talk to us about the optimal dose and what we should be looking for in our prenatals.
Yeah, I mean, so to consider that, okay, we're probably getting some in our diet, what we want to see in a prenatal is about 450 milligrams.
Gotcha. And then I think we looked at there's a difference between preconception and prenatal, and then also the recommendation for pregnant and lactating. And I know we debated back and forth about do we go with 450 or 550, and I think we ended up going with 550 just because we wanted to design a product that was able to be used all the way through your pregnancy and in that postpartum
Yeah.
period, right?
Yes. Yeah. And one other thing too is when choline is being used to support the baby's brain function and to support the baby's neural tube formation, it's really going to prioritize going in that direction, which puts the mother at risk of choline deficiency. And choline is used to make acetylcholine, which is the neurotransmitter that we use for memory. So, you know, we hear about like, you know, pregnancy brain a lot or mommy brain. And so optimizing choline is going to be especially important for that piece too.
I think we need to make a t-shirt that says choline is the new folate. So in our group. Speaking of folate, I think everyone has heard of folate and knows they need to be taking a prenatal that has folate in it. Tell us a little bit about, you know, why it's important and that form, going back to the point we were talking about with form, why is it important and what form should we be looking for it in?
Yes, I think the most important thing to clear up first is folate and folic acid are not the same thing. And sometimes they're used interchangeably. Even in medical textbooks and resources, they're calling folate folic acid, which is just wrong. Because folic acid is not found in nature. It's made in a lab, but it's not something that we find in any food sources. Folate is what we're talking about. Now, they're similar in structure, but they're not the exact same. So folate is what we call a methylation donor. And methylation is a process that our body uses to make DNA, to replicate cells, to make neurotransmitters. Like, it's a really essential process for so many things. And that's why folate is so important during preconception and through pregnancy, because of course, you know, the fetus is going from a couple little cells all the way to a full-blown human. So that's going to be a lot of cell division and DNA replication. So not having enough folate on board is associated with neural tube defects. And it's really important to get supplementing on folate even before, in a perfect world, even before you think about trying to get pregnant, because there's a lot of that DNA replication very early on, sometimes, you know, before a woman even knows she's pregnant. Now, I was saying folic acid and folate are not the same, and there's different forms of folate as well. So there's methylfolate, which is going to be the most bioavailable because it's the most active. If you look at the chart of how folate is used in the body, if you were to take, let's say, folic acid, it has to go through several different processes, which use tons of different cofactors, meaning vitamins and minerals, to become a form that's usable to the body. And for women who have something that's called the MTHFR, that's where their genes don't code some of those enzymes properly, so they're not able to go through that process. So for them, taking folic acid really won't convert any to the usable form. And this is a pretty common issue in just the general public. Sometimes people don't really know unless they're tested for it. So it's always the best idea to use a form that's active, bioavailable, that the body can just use right away.
Gotcha. Very helpful. I want to switch gears because you're talking about folate and the importance of folate in preconception and having enough even before you know that you might be pregnant, or especially during the point at which you're trying. I think other vitamins which are important like that are your B vitamins. And with a lot of women who go into trying to conceive and their conception journey, coming off of a birth control pill or some sort of hormonal birth control, we know that depletes B vitamins. Talk a little bit about kind of B6 and B12, what they do, why they're important to have in a prenatal.
Yes. So B12 is necessary for DNA and RNA creation. So that's going to be important for creating new cells and keeping those cells healthy, and red blood cell production. So B12 is really important early on in pregnancy because it's going to support that ability to create more cells. B6 is depleted by birth control pills. And so B6 is a very important one, not only for creating genes and cells and the methylation piece, but it has some processes in hormone production and progesterone maintenance. So it's very common for women who end up having miscarriages for that to be due to the inability to keep up with progesterone production. And so having an optimal level of B6 can potentially prevent some of those issues leading to miscarriage. It's also an important one to help with morning sickness. So that's really common early on in pregnancy. And so having enough B6 on board can potentially offset some of that as well.
Yeah, I do have to say, in my own pregnancy, I happened to be taking a B vitamin supplement when I found out I was pregnant, and I was lucky enough to never get sick and never have morning sickness. So
Yes.
I chalk it up to being, overstocked on my B vitamins, both for my prenatal and an additional supplement there. But we do hear a little bit of talk about too much, B in the B category, the B vitamins. Is there anything to worry about in terms of having too high of levels of B vitamins, especially in a prenatal?
Yes. And so even though these are water soluble vitamins, which, generally mean less risk of toxicity, there is still some concern. So too much B6, usually over, 50 to 100 milligrams of B6, it can lead to nerve issues where there's like numbness, tingling. So I know it really helps with morning sickness, but if you're taking it for morning sickness, you just want to make sure that you're kind of staying under that 50 milligram per day mark, just to avoid those nerve issues. Yep. And B12, there's some interesting research that's showing that too much B12 can lead to low birth weight, and potentially there's some links to autism as well. So keeping that to under 500 micrograms per day is probably a safe spot for B12.
Gotcha. Okay. I think if we look at, let's switch gears now to minerals. And if we think about what are on the mineral side, what do we need to make sure that we have? And I think a lot of times this is where prenatal manufacturers are also able to cut some corners and drop some things out of their prenatals, because they just need to save some space. So talk about what we should make sure we see from a mineral standpoint in a prenatal.
Yes. And so I think the most obvious one is magnesium. Magnesium is very commonly a deficiency in the US, and it's responsible for 350 or more biochemical processes in the body. So that's obviously going to have an impact on your own health, as well as the baby's health and development and growth. So magnesium, especially at bioavailable kind, is going to be very important. Two other ones are zinc and selenium. And zinc is a very common deficiency as well. And selenium and zinc are especially important in women who have any sort of thyroid disorder, because they help to create and convert the active form of your thyroid hormones. Especially in Hashimoto's, those can also potentially help to bring down antibodies. And having Hashimoto's or low thyroid is a reason that some women are not able to get pregnant or miscarry early on. So supporting that is really important. Both of those minerals are also needed for gene transcription and making all those genes in baby as the little one grows. Yeah, iron is another one. I feel like we could talk about every mineral because they're all so important. Iron is an important one, again, especially in women who are vegan or vegetarian, because really easily to absorb iron sources are going to be animal products. And through the pregnancy period, our blood volume is going to increase substantially, which means we need to create more red blood cells, which means we need more hemoglobin, which means we need more iron to make sure that we don't move into a iron deficiency.
I mean, I'm the daughter of a beef cattle farmer and grew up eating red meat and have it on my plate probably too much, that certainly more than I should. And I ended up needing an iron transfusion in the middle of my pregnancy. So it's a very important mineral to make sure that we have in there.
Yes.
I think that there's there's just so much information here. I feel like we could talk for days about prenatals. But in terms of looking at summarizing things for everyone who's been watching today, what do you think the top three things, what are the top three things when I go to the grocery store or the aisle, or I'm looking at a brand online? What should I might be looking for in my prenatal, kind of top three ingredients, levels, things like that?
Yeah. I mean, one kind of obvious one is how many capsules are in the formula. So if, like you said before, if it's just one capsule a day, that's going to tell anyone that that's not enough. There's no way that there's a high enough dosage of all those vitamins and minerals to support you. So just, that's kind of like a quick and dirty quick thing is how many capsules do I need to take? The other thing is looking for choline, because this is kind of a newer one. It's not a new vitamin, but it's sort of new to the whole conception and prenatal research arena. And so you want to make sure that whatever prenatal you take does have choline in it and does have enough. So we talked about kind of the bare minimum we want to see is 450 milligrams. So making sure that your prenatal has choline.
Yep.
And then looking at the forms of the vitamins. We talked about bioavailability. And if your vitamins are in a form that your body has to do so much work to make active, then that's sort of wasting your body's resources. And you're potentially not going to get the full benefit of those vitamins. So looking for folate that's in a form of methylfolate, not folic acid. Looking at that there's parentheses at the back of different minerals and vitamins, just to see that it is going to be in a form that your body can take in effectively.
Gotcha. I mean, I think, Stephanie, this has been super helpful. We talk a lot about, eventually conceiving and having a child is a lot like sending a rocket to the moon. There's all of these hundreds of thousands of processes at the cellular level that all have to fire in the right order at the right time, in order to get that rocket, build the rocket and get it off the ground. And I think we talked a lot today about how important all of these vitamins and minerals are to have in your prenatal, because they all play a small but very important role in things like methylation or gene transportation. Like, there's just so many different things that that minerals have a role in that I think we overlook. And I think that's why we're really passionate about making sure that everyone is taking the right prenatal for them, and it has enough of the right ingredients in it, and that those ingredients are in a form that their body can really use.
Yes.
So I think, any other thoughts or ideas to share to our audience?
I think the other thing to always remember is a supplement is going to be a supplement to a healthy lifestyle. So we can't underemphasize how important it is to, be still focusing on a healthy, varied diet, because we know our soil isn't the best, but we're still going to be getting nutrients that way. So focusing on a healthy diet that's rich in fiber and rich in vitamins and minerals, as well as, focusing on the lifestyle components too. So making sure that you're active, making sure you're working on stress reduction, because all of those things, if your stress is really high and you're completely sedentary, that's going to increase your need for some of these vitamins, because it's going to be trying to deal with the stressors in the body. So you want to be able to take as much focus as you can towards a healthy baby and a healthy pregnancy. So making sure, it's a whole support system of mind, of body, of supplements, of diet working together.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think a little sneak peek on our next piece of work together around endocrine disrupting chemicals. I think that's the other thing I would probably add to that, is just that's another piece of the lifestyle, which is really important to understand kind of how your environment is impacting your hormone levels, and then therefore what vitamins and minerals might you need to be kind of offsetting that if you can't make some of those changes. So that sounds like our next webinar, Stephanie.
Sounds great.
All right. Thanks for joining me today. And we look forward to everyone sending in their questions for Stephanie on our webinar. We'll make sure that we get them all answered and sent back to you. We'll also post not only the webinar link on our website, but also Stephanie's answers to any questions that you do send in. So thank you for joining us. And thanks, Stephanie, for joining us. And we'll see you guys next time.
Thanks for having me. Bye.
Bye.